Welcome to Tentative Title with Tim. This is a podcast about creativity, about process, about filmmaking, and about screenwriting. Welcome, everybody, back to the podcast. If you listened to the episode from last week, you probably heard that I was sick. And, this week I sound a lot better. I feel a lot better. So that is, it's always amazing to feel, better, to not feel sick or bogged down or whatever. But that's not what I'm here to talk about, of course. What I really wanted to talk about today has to do with the idea of being, so there's this phrase. I don't know how common it is anymore, but when people say that somebody is the real deal, when somebody is very authentic, very, I guess, pure in intent and in their skills and talent, they call them the Real McCoy. And I had never really understood why that phrase or why that term came about, and then I decided to look it up, and apparently it's from so I'm looking at the Smithsonian, can never say the word, the Smithsonian magazine, where they say Elijah McCoy was the real McCoy. Maybe. The inventor held 57 United States patents, mostly related to the railway. His inventions, which were not headline-making outside of the field of steam engines, were so associated with quality and good function that people began using the term, quote-unquote, the real McCoy to refer to quality products. And, I've been thinking about the what we do as artists, and a lot of it has to do with kind of like this, we tear ourselves down. We fill ourselves with the imposter syndrome. We do everything in our power to diminish our talents of what we are able to do. And I don't know why we do that. Because, I guess because it's impossible to gauge sometimes whether or not what we are making is of any value, because what we make sometimes doesn't actually give us any signs, any proof of value, unless down the line it's still around and people are talking about it. Now, we can get the instant validation with people watching what it is we're making and commenting and giving us emails saying I really appreciated, that you made this, or, your movie saved my life, or whatever, there's any number of responses that an audience can give to whatever it is you're making. But not always. A lot of times if something is good, people watch it and then they just go on their merry way, and you don't really know if what you did was of any value or was any good sometimes. Well, to be fair, if something is really bad, people are more likely to tell you it's really bad. At least behind, the wall of leaving a comment on something. They don't hold back sometimes, and they're kind of given license to express to the full extent their feelings of what you put so much work into. But in terms of just our mindset of who we are as artists, as creative people, there's a lot of just depressive mental anguish involved with just being a creative person. And that plays into the idea of whether or not we are the real McCoy. Are we the real deal? And it can be hard to determine that, because they say that if you Like if you make a movie, you're a filmmaker. If you write a book, you're an author. If you make a song, you're a musician, and that is great. And you can define yourself as that thing. But if you've only done it once, can you really hold on to that label? And this just comes from my own personal experience where I haven't made a film in a very long time. And in fact, I'm still in the middle of finishing up making a film. And so when I think about whether or not I can define myself as a filmmaker, it's like, well, I have made films, yes. Am I making films at this current moment? Maybe, because I still am working on scripts and I'm still writing things, but I'm not really filming them. I'm not doing anything that is, like I can say that I am currently a filmmaker at this moment. And I'm very fascinated by that because, like, when people ask me, hey, what are you working on? Or what are you doing now? And I always am flustered by that question because I don't feel like I can confidently say, well, yeah, I'm making films right now. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm not making films. I'm writing films. I'm doing things that are a part of the filmmaking process, but I'm not on set. I'm not in the editing room. I'm not doing what a filmmaker should be doing. And I mean, that's on my shoulders, like that's because of the choices that I make and the way in which I'm able to mobilize people to to come along with me to make something. That's completely on my shoulders, and I take responsibility for that. But then should I consider myself to be the real McCoy when it comes to defining myself as a filmmaker? And this kind of goes back to the comparison episode that I had, I think it was like a month ago or something, where I was really like talking about filmmakers that I know who are like, I don't know a time when they're not making something. Like, they are making film after film after film after film, and I'm just so amazed at the fact that they're able to jump from one film to the other, and they just keep going. And they have momentum behind them. They have people who support them and want them to keep making films because it means that, like, they can come along on that journey. And I've been lucky to be on their set and see and be a part of that journey for them. But it was really an eye opener because I was like, wow, I call myself a filmmaker. How can I call myself a filmmaker? Like, I have a couple films that I've made, sure, and I have one that's in post, and that's awesome. And once that film is done and out into the world, I can kind of put on that definition of being a filmmaker. But at this current moment, it feels like I'm very much in this limbo where, like, I don't know if I should call myself a filmmaker, and in fact, I don't feel like I am one in a lot of respects because I'm not on set, because I'm not I'm not going into production on a film. And I think we kind of feel that, like, I know I feel this way a lot. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but that can kind of diminish your, I guess, your confidence in just doing what you want to do creatively, because it ends up being something where you end up comparing yourself, or you defining yourself against the actions of like other people who are really doing it for real and making things happen. And it's not to say that, like, I say I don't feel like I'm a filmmaker, but I am. And there have been plenty, like you go down the list of directors, and sometimes a director doesn't make a film for like 10 years. They'll make a film, they'll work on something for 10 years, and then they'll release it, and then they'll work for another 10 years, and then release another film. They are still filmmakers. They are, even though they don't release something as consistently as maybe, like other directors who have work where they're churning out a film like every 2 years. But they can still define themselves as filmmakers. And that kind of brings me to the other point, which I think is part of our business. And I just don't like the fact that this is the case. And I've found myself in this same situation where I have to rely on somebody's word in terms of like what they are, how they define themselves. And it can be really tough to trust what people say in this industry. Like, people can talk a lot. They can say what they can do. They can, say that they have something in development, or that, they're doing this or they're doing that. And that's all well and good. But then when you go to their page, or, you try to look up anything online, you can't really find anything. And, you go on their IMDb page, and it's like, there's hardly anything on here. Like, maybe they're developing stuff. And like, I have to kind of compare it to what I'm doing, where like, yeah, I'm writing a lot of stuff, but a lot of the things that I'm writing they're not on IMDb. They're not, they're still like in development, quote unquote. And so it's like, if somebody was to come across my profile, would they be able to look at that and say, well, yeah, Tim is the real deal because I can see his resume. I can see the things that he has worked on. And, and so I can trust that, he is also going to, that he is a filmmaker. He's gonna, he's doing the things that he says he's doing. We can rely on his word. And that's a really tough, it's a really tough part of being an independent filmmaker, is that there's a lot of people who are trying to, climb their way up the ladder, and who are like really desperate to just get anybody to listen to them, or to get anybody to like work with them. And, sometimes it's because of what, they themselves have done, that it kind of like they pushed, people off to the side, or maybe they did something that was not too honest. And so it's like, well, nobody wants to work with them because of the fact that like they screwed people over in the past. And that happens all the time. And, I dread, if there, if there's anybody out there who's like, yeah, Tim, like I worked on this thing, and, like, hey, what the heck, like what, I need, like, like, you did me wrong, Tim. I'll be like, oh, no, that's not my intent. That's not, no, I'm not trying to do that. It's like because your word is definitely part of that definition of being the real McCoy. Are you about the business of making films, and are you about like, taking care of people who are on your crew, and, are you about like people wanting to work with you because you do good work? And that's a really big part of it, because of the fact that like there's a lot of people in this industry who don't do good work, who don't follow through with what they say. And that is they can't, they're not the real McCoys, basically. Like they're not true to a quality of work ethic, that, they're just there to kind of like talk themselves up because they're trying to gain status, or they're trying to, work their way up, to some kind of like place of status, of yeah, not necessarily power, but just, to be somebody who can like call the shots, who can call the, who can, really, make things happen. But it's like they're not really prepared, or they don't really know like what they're doing, because they've been like basically bullshitting their way through, their career, and people have have fallen for it. And, like I said, this happens like all the time, where just people are able to talk a really good game, but when it's time to follow through, like they're not able to. And, like you hear from, from actors or from directors who, they had to, essentially like they had to fake it until they make it. And it sounds so like romanticized now, especially like since they were able to actually make it. Like they got lucky. They happened to have the right amount of talent, or vision, or just luck, where they were able to kind of like make their way in the world, as a filmmaker. And now everybody reveres them. But at the time, they were just like you and I, where it's just like, I have no idea who this guy is. Like, are we gonna give them money to make a film? Like, well, I don't know if we should. But yet, they were able to kind of to still like back up their bullshit with some craft, some clear vision about what they wanted to do, with a team that was backing them up, and help them do what they needed to do to make an awesome film. And so even though at the time they weren't able to prove what they could do, they were given that opportunity to show that. And because of that, they were able to become like, the genuine article, you are the filmmaker that, now people want to emulate, to make, to like copy their style and stuff like that. But now it's like, there's so many people making films. Like you can just go out on the weekend with your phone and some buddies, and you can make a film. And, if you're doing that consistently, it's like, okay, yeah, you're a filmmaker. And like, but, are they good films? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends on like, on what your ability is to craft a story and to have compelling characters. But sometimes you're going out there because you're like, you want to reach that point. And so you're like, I got to work the craft. I got to get out there. I got to shoot things that are going to be terrible. Like they say it's going to take about 10 years of doing really, really terrible stuff before you actually break through and do something that's good. And if you understand that, and if you understand that, like, you're going to have to go through that struggle, it's like that is part of you becoming like the genuine, for real, like filmmaker that people are gonna want to watch and gonna want to follow. And that's a lesson that I think I'm still learning to this day, because I want everything that I make to be great. I mean, I think we all do. And when it's not, the imposter syndrome really kicks in, and it feels like, okay, the why do I even bother? Why am I even trying to be a filmmaker? Like, I feel like I can't even accomplish like the smallest of tasks when it comes to like being a filmmaker. So why even try? And it makes me feel like I'm not the genuine article, that I'm not the real McCoy. But I'm like, no, that's not the point. The point is to consistently be working and consistently be trying things and challenging myself. And that's how I become better. That's how I become what it is I'm working towards. And it's a lot of failure. And that's really what it comes down to, is just being like honest about the fact that like there's going to be a lot of failure. And so like to not really bullshit anybody about like the thing, like what you're trying to do, and what and how much work it's going to take, and how many times you fail. Those are going to be the traits that are going to set you apart, because it shows that you are genuine about the struggle of being a filmmaker, of being an artist. It's very hard to really follow somebody who's like too confident about what they can do, because there's always some skepticism of like, okay, maybe you can do this, but like, if you have no proof that you can do it, then how am I supposed to trust that you can do it? And, feel free to just be like, if somebody approaches you and says, yeah, I can do all this, that, and the other thing, and it's like, yeah, that's great. But if you don't have any proof of what you can do, it's like, there are thousands upon thousands of other people who are talented that nobody knows who they are. And you could find them and you could have them work on your film, and it would just give them, it would give them exposure. It would give them a chance to like show what they can do, and finding good people who like are extremely talented and trying to partner with them, like just building upon each other. That's what we can do as artists, and that's what I hope I can do, is that, when people look at my stuff, they're like, yeah, you know how to do this. You have an eye. You have you have an imagination that, I want to work with, that, we can make stories together with. And, I guess in a way, I just want to be in the club of people who are very creative, and the only way to do that is just to keep working the craft and keep trying things and failing, and not being depressed about the fact that you're failing, but the fact that, like, it's part of the process, and I don't know what's on the other side of all of this, but I know that it's preparing me for the really big jobs, the moment when I can shine, when I can show that, like, I know what I'm doing, that I have some kind of talent, and that I'm in the right place. Because if I'm not in the right place, I need to do something else. and that's what every, in every single like interview, well, not every single interview, but in most interviews, when people who have like made a career out of being filmmakers, and they're like, what would you tell somebody who's trying to get into filmmaking? And they're usually saying, if you can't, like, you only do this if you have to. Like, if there's nothing else in the world that you can do, then do this. But if you can, if you can get an accountant job, or, if you want to bag groceries, do that. Because that's going to be a lot easier and a lot more fulfilling sometimes than being a filmmaker. Like, being a filmmaker is it's a type of lifestyle that is not for the faint of heart. It's grueling. Long hours. Nobody outside of it understands what it is you're doing for the most part. They only think that they know because they see, they see like some behind the scenes, or they watch some like entertainment program, or they kind of think they know what's going on, and they have no idea like what it takes to make a film, to be a part of this industry. And that's another part of it too, is just having confidence that what you're doing is going to matter in the long run. Just keep going. Like, I guess this episode was more about, trying to get you guys motivated, to try to get myself motivated, because there's nothing better than knowing that that you're doing good work, and when you're doing good work, you don't even have to talk about it. Like, that's my belief, that when something is so good that you don't have to like really, or when you know what you're doing, you don't have to talk yourself up. Like, other people will talk you up for you, and that's, at least for me, for somebody ironically who has a podcast, but I don't really like talking that much. Just to be able to have somebody who can talk me up, because I've proven through my actions that, I can do this. I am good at it, and that, people want to work with me. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. Then that's a sign that, I'm working towards being that genuine, true, real McCoy. So, all right, guys, that's all I got for today. Thank you once again for listening. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, I got the email, I got the Facebook page, I got all kinds of like social media things, and you can drop me a line, and I'll respond to whatever questions you have for me. So anyway, guys, that's all I got for today. I'll talk to you in the next one. If you'd like to connect with me, there is an email for the podcast. It's tentative.title.with.tim.podcast@gmail.com. There's also a Twitter account. The handle is @title_Tim. There's also a Facebook page where you can post questions, or you can connect with me there. Thank you guys for listening. I'll talk to you on the next one.